Hello vinyl community, Mike from MikeGuitarPlayer07 here, coming at you live with another vinyl record video. And today, I'm going to talk to you guys about Willie Nelson. I was requested to show off my Willie Nelson collection by a viewer or two in the VC, and I have not done so, so I figured, why not start and do so now? You guys have seen some things intermittently here and there, but there's a desire to see what I have, and I'll show what I have. By no means do I have everything by him. Nowhere close, actually, since his discography started in the 50s, and, well, he's still making music to this day. In a month or two, he's going to have another new album. So, I'm nowhere near it. I do not have every single one of his well-known albums, but I do have a couple of his well-known albums, a couple of deep cuts. You know, I have a good mix when it comes to Willie Nelson. So, I'm going to go into it and show it here. Now, I've heard almost all of these. There's a couple that I got recently in a VCLT that I have not cleaned and listened to yet, but 90% of these I've heard. So I have a bunch of stuff on CD, vinyl record, so I have some on cassette, but I didn't pull those out. So let's get started, shall we? People just want to know some good albums to go with, so in no particular order either, these albums. So the first one I'm going to show is Willie Nelson Stardust. This is from 1976, 77, 78 era, 78. This is one of his early albums on Columbia Records. This is more of a pop standard / jazzy feel album by him. Has a Georgia on My Mind, Stardust, a cover of Unchained Melody, Moonlight in Vermont, some very good stuff. And so that's Stardust by Willie Nelson. The next is Willie Nelson and Family's Honeysuckle Rose. This was a soundtrack to the movie Honeysuckle Rose. And no, I have not seen the movie Honeysuckle Rose, but this is a good soundtrack of his works. And it has a couple other individuals on here, but this has On the Road Again, Heaven or Hell, Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, Whiskey River, Bloody Mary Morning, just to name a few of the songs Willie Nelson has done. Angel Flying Too Close to the Ground, Angel Eyes, A Song for You on Cloudy Day. So that's a great Willie Nelson one. And you know, that album is kind of badass. I like that album cover. This is Willie Nelson's album Tougher Than Leather. Has a cool embossed label. This is one of those albums I've only heard once, so I really can't talk too much about it. But Willie Nelson, I've never been disappointed by a Willie Nelson album I've heard. I've loved everything I've ever heard by him. So even though I've only heard this once, I still recommend it. What year was this one? 1983. So, but yeah, this is another one. And cool artwork and everything too. But as I said, I listened to it once, so I can't really speak about it too much. This album I just listened to again last night. This is Half Nelson. This is a compilation from 1985, and this features songs that Willie Nelson did with other individuals. This has Merle Haggard and Willie Nelson doing Poncho and Lefty, which is probably one of Willie Nelson's most famous duets that he was featured on. There's 7 Spanish Angels that he did with Ray Charles, which is fantastic. This entire album is fantastic. Every song on here is fantastic, but I'm going to say some of my favorites. I Told a Lie to My Heart with Hank Williams. Of course, Hank Williams wasn't alive when Willie Nelson was creating music, so it's like him doing it to a pre-recorded thing of Hank Williams. But Honky Tonk Woman with Leon Russell, Half a Man with George Jones, They All Went to Mexico, Carlos Santana. I mean, I've almost named every single song off this album. This is a flawless comp album, really. Let's show a few CDs. Here's the album by Willie Nelson, The Sound in Your Mind. And this album is a Willie Nelson grail for me on vinyl record. If someone ever VCLTs me this, I owe them a lot, because this album is very important to me for the song. And this song is a hit too, by the way. But this song has special meaning to me. If You Got the Money, Honey, I've Got the Time, which I have a connection with my grandfather with this. Another working story with him while landscaping. If anybody's interested in hearing that, I could share that, but that's not one I've ever shared before. He does a great cover of Amazing Grace on here, and he has a cool little medley of mashup of some tunes on the end of this. So this is a fantastic album that I swear I owe whoever, if I don't find it and someone VCLTs me that album, I owe them a lot. This is another Willie Nelson comp. This is one of his original greatest hits albums that he released. This is Greatest Hits and Some That Will Be, which originally came out in 1981. That's showing up a little dark. Let me pull that out for you. Oh, as I pull off the jewel case there. So, yeah, just a cool little shot of Willie Nelson. Painting of him. Let's get that back on there. And, you know, this has all his hits. I've already mentioned some of these already, but let's see if there's any that I can name. Heartaches of a Fool. I haven't mentioned that song yet. Good-Hearted Woman. All My Heroes Have Always Been Cowboys is great. Midnight Rider, if I didn't mention that. On the Road Again, of course. Heartbreak Hotel that he did with Leon Russell. Obviously, that's an Elvis cover. So, and it's the greatest hits, so that kind of says it all. I'm going to show the vinyl record version of this album too, but since I pulled out the C version, Willie Nelson's Always on My Mind. That song Always on My Mind was one of Willie Nelson's biggest hits. He does a cover of Simon & Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Water, which is also fantastic. That's showing up a little dark too, so I'll do that like that for you. Willie Nelson, that's a badass photo of Willie Nelson too. The Party's Over is a great tune on here. The Last Thing I Needed First Thing in the Morning. So, that's some good stuff. And then we got another Willie Nelson comp here. This is the Essential Willie. This is the 2015 version of this. I believe there was one in the early 2000s or earlier 2010s. It's just a slight change of track listing pretty much. But this is the most in-depth of the compilation albums I've shown. 2-disc set here. It starts off with really early tunes like Hello Walls, which Willie Nelson wrote in the 1950s for a guy named Farron Young. However, he does his version of it here. Yesterday's Wine, which I believe is a cover of Melanie, or Willie Nelson might have wrote it for Melanie, I don't know, but I know Melanie does a song called that. A song called Family Bible is great. I'm trying to see songs that I didn't already name. Blue Skies is really good. City of New Orleans is fantastic. Highwaymen, which is a song by the Highwaymen that consists of Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, and Chris Christopherson, but Waylon Jennings was part of that. Roll Me Up with Snoop Dogg, Jamie Johnson, and Chris Christopherson is good. So some more Willie Nelson. And something that's very impressive about Willie Nelson is you listen to his music from the 50s and you listen to him now, his voice hasn't aged, which you can't say that about a lot of artists. This is Willie Nelson's album, God's Problem Child. And that's dark and it's a digipack here, as you can see, so I can't really do anything about it. But this is his 2017 release. The Little House on a Hill is great. Your Memory Has a Mind of Its Own is great. God's Problem Child, which features Tony Joe White, Leon Russell, and Jamie Johnson. I didn't realize that Willie Nelson did so much with Leon Russell. He Won't Ever Be Gone. Good stuff. Willie Nelson's My Way. That's another digipack one, so sorry for it not being that great. This is a 2018 release. This is pretty much just jazz standards that he covered. It's very similar in nature to the Stardust album I showed earlier. He does Fly Me to the Moon, which is great. It Was a Very Good Year. Both songs that Frank Sinatra did. Blue Moon, which is, I forget who did the original version of that, but fantastic. He does the song My Way, and of course another Frank Sinatra tune on here. Night and Day is great. He does a song with Norah Jones called What Is This Good Thing Called Love, which is really great. If you like jazz and you like country, well, here you go. And this is Willie Nelson's newest release until within the next month or two that he releases a new one. This one I've only heard once too, so I apologize for not being able to say too much about it. But this is his album, Ride Me Back Home. Yeah, this is a great album. As I said, only heard it once, so I can't speak much about it, but really enjoyed it. All right, let's go to let's get over the stuff that my grandfather had. Willie Nelson's Red-Haired Stranger. This is actually one my grandfather had on CD too, so I'll pull out the CD version of it in a little bit. Red-Headed Stranger. This is a concept album, and this album changed country music. You know, even though it's a lot more raw and a lot more unproduced compared to most of Willie Nelson's works. Not that there's a whole lot of production in Willie Nelson's works anyway, especially with his more earlier stuff, with the outlaw stuff like this, but this is about as raw as you get. This is Willie Nelson's debut on Columbia Records, and his most successful album, one of them. So, for those who want to know where to start with Willie Nelson, this is the album, one of the first ones to grab. And this has, I mentioned this song multiple times already, but it has the hit Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. And it's just a great album, great tunes, and you know, this album does not have an embossed cover like I thought it did. Yeah, I have another copy over here. That's what I'm trying to see if that one has it, if it's like a difference in pressings, because this is one of them I have on 2 copies of on vinyl, and I'm keeping both copies. This is Always on My Mind album. Again, my grandfather had on vinyl record, I had on CD. We've already discussed that album. I have this on CD and vinyl record, so I'll show the CD in a moment. This is Willie and Waylon. I discussed the song already, Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. This is a cool embossed sleeve, so if anybody ever gets this album, cool embossed sleeve. This is with Waylon Jennings, of course, as I just said. This album, Willie Nelson, along with Waylon Jennings, are kind of who started the outlaw country movement, along with David Allan Coe. So they're the real original outlaw country musicians. So when you hear Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings together, you know it's going to be a heck of an album. And this is one of my favorites, of favorite duet country albums of all time here. So of course I just said Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys, but the year 23 minus 25 is great, which is kind of interesting because 2003 was going to be 25 years after this album came out, because this was released in 1978. So that was interesting. It's not supposed to be that way is a great tune. Don't Cuss the Fiddle, Gold Dust Woman, all good stuff. Now this one is really, well, let me show the CD first. So that's a CD version. This was just in my video yesterday. Nothing too fancy there. Just a remaster of it. So this album is classified as a Waylon Jennings album. However, it features Willie Nelson, Jesse Coulter, and Tom Pelglacier on it as well. And this is called Wanted the Outlaws. There's some songs that Willie does solo. Well, I'll put it this way. There's stuff that they all do solo, and then there's 1 or 2 duets that any of these people do together. And Good Hearted Woman and Heaven or Hell are 2 of the songs that Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings did together. And it's just fantastic. I actually have 2 copies of this on CD, because when I got this on CD the first time, it was in terrible condition, so I just have unopened and cracked and beaten. Never been played, but then I complained. They didn't want me to send it back. They just said, okay, you sent me a photo, you have proof, okay, cool. No, keep it, we'll send you a new one. So I have a new copy of it. So this is the 20th anniversary version of this album, and then the only difference is that this has a bunch of bonus tracks on it. So, fantastic. So if anybody is interested in having a copy of this and doesn't mind that the jewel case is a little beaten, or if they're interested in it, I can open it and replace the jewel case for you. Wanted the Outlaws, let me know. I'll gladly send it your way. More in regards to my grandfather's CDs of Willie Nelson. Red-Haired Strangers I just showed a little bit ago. The only difference between this and the vinyl record version are some bonus tracks. This is a compilation album called Super Hits of Willie Nelson. There's nothing on this album that I haven't really mentioned, except if I didn't mention the song The City of New Orleans, because I'm seeing that on here and I don't recall mentioning it, but if I did, I apologize, but that's another good tune as well. And this is a live album. This is called Stars and Guitars, and this is something that Willie Nelson did in the early 2000s. This is a very dark album cover. Let me pull that out for you. This is an album that Willie Nelson did with a bunch of his songs, and or mostly his songs, if they're not all his songs, but I think they are. And he had a bunch of musicians join him, like Toby Keith, Keith Richards, Sheryl Crow, Ray Price, a bunch of well-known country musicians, and non-country musicians for that matter. Now, I don't know if my grandmother just has this Willie Nelson CD still or not, but there was another live album that was released around the same time as this one called Alive and Kickin' or something like that, which is also very good, but that CD is not in my possession. I assume my grandmother still has that one from my grandfather's collection. Now, these are the albums that I have not listened to. This I got from that mega VCLT, that 30-pound VCLT package that I put a video out about a week or two ago. And the album Red Haired Stranger is in here, so of course I've heard that album. I just haven't heard this particular copy, but I'm keeping both of them because one is my grandfather's and this one was a gift, and I have a hard time not giving gifts, and this has a personalized note specifically with this album as well, but we'll get there. So Willie Nelson, What Can You Do to Me Now? Now this is a album that came out in 1975, and this is by RCA, but it's a collector's album. And this is apparently a compilation of a bunch of music that has not been released by Willie Nelson before. I don't know anything about this album, haven't listened to it, but as I said, I have not heard a bad Willie Nelson album, so I have extremely high hopes for it. Red-Headed Stranger, I just mentioned this, showed it 2 other times at this point. But yeah, there's a personalized note with this, so I can't get rid of that. I can't give it away. I can't do anything like that. Not that I'd want to anyway. It's just a great album, so. The album by Willie Nelson, The Troublemaker. This is a very highly regarded album. Has another special note with it from the individual who sent me it as a VCLT. This is a 70s album, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. I believe this is a 70s release. Yeah, 1976. So this actually might be the second album Willie Nelson did on Columbia, because Stardust was 78. 75 was Red Haired Stranger, so this might have been the second one that he did on Columbia Records. But anyway, the song The Troublemaker is good, so I'm sure that the rest of it's a very highly regarded album by Willie Nelson, so, and I just haven't heard it. And this is another comp album of 20 golden hits by Willie Nelson, so kind of a greatest hits comp again. So, as I said, haven't heard those last 4, but I have high hopes and high expectations for it and can't wait to spin them in the near future. The only album that I could think of offhand at the moment that I don't know that was mentioned, and I'm sure there's going to be others after I finish recording, but I think I've given everybody a pretty good starting point for Willie Nelson. There's an album called Shotgun Willie, which is a highly regarded album that I have not heard or own a copy of that I've been looking for. But, yeah, other than that, I would start with these. And if anybody wants to know specific starting points, I know I said a Red-Haired Stranger is probably that first starting point. But if anybody wants to ask, you know, leave a comment down below, and I'll gladly lead you in the right direction. So, for those asking about Willie Nelson, I'm glad to talk about Willie Nelson for you guys, show some Willie Nelson. Thank you guys for watching. Keep on spinning that wax, and I'll see you in the next Final Record video.